Welcome to Computer Science Week at South Portland High School. Today's guest speaker is Shelby Bryant from Educate Maine. Shelby is representing Educate Maine's Project Login. Shelby Bryant has been interested in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics since high school, where she was a member of an award-winning robotics team. Her interests have grown to include history and the arts. She previously worked as a digital liberal arts fellow. As a fellow, she experienced the transformative power of technology by digitally preserving valuable cultural artifacts. She is driven by a belief in STEM education's power to shape the future. She is excited to share her experiences and insights with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. So my name is Shelby. I'm very excited to be here. Have any of you ever heard of Educate Maine before? You have?
Yeah.
Awesome. Have you worked with Project Login before?
No.
Okay. So I work at Educate Maine, which is a business-led nonprofit that specializes in getting students and folks ready for different career exploration and development. So it's all about getting the workforce ready through education. Project Login is focused on empowering teachers and students to pursue computer science to fill the gaps that we currently have in computer science careers. So there's a lot of positions open in the state of Maine and not a lot of people applying for those jobs. This is my first year fully having worked at Educate Maine, so I just celebrated my 1 year in October. And I have done a lot of different things for a lot of different people, but something I kind of want to talk about is how I actually got to Educate Maine. So I was a high school student at Spruce Mountain High School. I competed on the robotics team. At the time it was 3930. Now they've merged with Blue Crew, so if any of you are on the robotics team here, you might know of those teams. I had my rookie year, was my sophomore year of high school. We started a team. We ended up going to Worlds that year. We won the Rookie All-Star Award, and we went to St. Louis. It was really exciting and awesome, and I had a really interesting and weird experience. My team, being its rookie year, didn't really know how to function very well. We had just consolidated our high schools, so rival high schools became one high school. So Jay and Livermore combined, and we did not necessarily like each other very much. And so we created this robotics team as a way to have a brand new after-school curricular that had no previous background existing. That's what we thought. Jay had a Lego League team. Livermore did not. So I went to Livermore Falls High School. I never did robotics before we started the team at Spruce Mountain. I didn't know the teachers who were teaching robotics. I didn't know anybody to do with anything. And so it was really my rookie year. We didn't know how to program the robot. We barely knew how to build the robot. And then on top of that, we had to present all of these awards and write all of these essays and apply for all this money and fundraise like crazy. And so I decided I was going to become the person who fundraised, and I was going to do all of the public relations for the robotics team. And so instead of deciding to pursue computer science, after robotics, I decided I was going to pursue media and communication studies. I wanted to be a public relations specialist. I wanted to promote businesses and companies and talk on people's behalf and do public speaking like I am right now. But that came from robotics, nothing else. I studied history at Ursinus College. I went and decided to get a media communications minor. I got a minor in museum studies and a minor in gender and women's studies. So I got 3 minors. I worked at the Business Assist Center, so I was working at an entrepreneurial center on campus. I was a digital liberal arts fellow on campus. I worked in the history help room on campus. I worked in the cafeteria on campus. I played golf. I was in a sorority. I was invested in college. None of that was really necessarily super programming oriented, except for the digital liberal arts fellow. And also the Business Assist Center. So I was studying history, I was doing all this stuff, and then I decided that I needed to solve some problems. Teachers on campus did not understand technology very well. Our professors were a little outdated, and I took it as my responsibility to personally help these teachers understand presentations and PowerPoint tools that were brand new. No more Microsoft PowerPoint. We were using Prezi, we were using Powtoon, we were using all sorts of storytelling apps and websites that they had never seen before. Our science department was struggling as students were trying to use GPS software that they had no idea how to use. So my Digital Liberal Arts Fellowship involved digitizing collections and then helping professors better understand the technology that students were starting to use. So I was doing workshops as a student with professors on how to better use technology to meet the needs of their students. It was a really cool opportunity. It made me feel like I still did something with my robotics time that I had in high school. And then I also was really excited to be doing history and also using technology. So scanning the collections, using metadata, putting in, all of the information that somebody needs to be able to look something up into a computer. I was making online exhibitions, I was doing videos, I was creating multimedia for different organizations on campus. So our campus library was asking me to help with digitizing books. I was working with the local museums, and also I was working at high schools and middle schools to help them digitize some of their stuff as well. So it was really fun and really exciting. And at no point in that did I say that I was a computer science person. I was a history major with multiple minors. I was a golfer. I wasn't, I did sports. Not really. But, I didn't identify myself as that when I was in college. I later went on to go work in museums. So I worked at the Yarmouth Historical Society. And at the Yarmouth Historical Society, I continued digitizing collections. I continued creating social media for people. I continued doing all sorts of different things that still didn't say that I was a computer science person. I was just like, yeah, social media, whatever. It's easy. It's fine. I wasn't really connecting dots yet. Later I went to work at the Rufus Porter Museum of Art and Ingenuity, and I was doing things like creating new names for the museum and coming up with new exhibit ideas and doing all this stuff that, again, didn't think anything about technology, when in reality I was using SketchUp to actually create exhibit layouts and using things like apps to create tours, like designing tour apps and redoing the website and doing all this stuff, and I'm still saying, I'm not a computer science person. I then worked at the Maine Mineral and Gem Museum, and that's when I started to realize something. I was solving problems for a lot of people, and I was using technology to pretty much solve all of those problems. So the Maine Mineral and Gem Museum opens up. It's a brand new museum. If any of you have ever been there, it's really cool. They've got a whole out of this world exhibit that's all just meteorites. They've got, all of the different Maine minerals. It's a really interesting place, and there's iPads everywhere, and lights, and sounds, and all sorts of cool things. And you walk in, and all of a sudden there's like an explosion in the mine, and then you turn it on the corner, and there's like a whole artificial mine simulation thing, and like all sorts of cool things. None of them had ever run a museum before. So I had museum background experience. That's what I thought. I was like, yeah, I'm going to come in and I'm going to tell you how to do this stuff and how to get new visitors. I'm going to do all this awesome things. No, I was actually in charge of making sure the laptops worked, making sure the iPads worked, making sure the sound worked, basically doing all of their information technology needs. I also was checking all of the emails, making sure all the ticketing websites worked, and I was updating software that I didn't even build. So I'm over there trying to go in and program things like, okay, there's an issue with this code right here, and people who buy tickets are no longer able to purchase them on these days, and how do I adjust that, and how do I go in and make sure that, all of these things are working, and that when somebody buys a jewelry piece in the gift store, that it's still related to the same customer who's over there buying tickets to the museum and then who donated $20 next month, because we need to make sure that we know XYZ person did all of these things. So our system was kind of corrupt. We were having some issues. And I was the only one who was stepping up and saying, I can do that, I'll work on that, I'll Google that, I'll figure that out, I'll call up the company. Because what was happening was this company would say, well, that's just an issue with how you run it. You're just not running it right. We've programmed it perfectly. Jargon, jargon, jargon. You just don't know how to work technology. And I was like, no, I'm pretty confident that I know that this isn't working correctly and that there's a bug and that your programmers need to get on it. And I had to learn all of the jargon that they kept throwing at my museum so that I could better say, no, there's a real problem, and I can see it. It's right here. But I wasn't licensed enough to actually work on it. I needed to have an actual certificate in order to work on it, and I needed to be hired by the company to work on it, and there was a lot of legal battle that needed to happen, and we were spending hundreds of dollars a week for this program. It was a lot of money. And it wasn't working. So I had to come up with new solutions and solve those problems. I still wouldn't have called myself a computer science person, but I was programming every day. Now I work for Educate Maine, a business-led nonprofit. And I was like, yeah, of course nonprofit makes sense. Museums are nonprofits. I'm just going right back into the nonprofit sector. I can promote computer science. My mom's a computer science teacher. I know all these things. I can do that. I did robotics. I think it's good. I think it's important. My first month working there, I realized, holy crap, I'm a computer science person. What? It took a long time, 27 years, for me to realize that I was interested in STEM. Yeah?
You're 27 years old.
I am.
I had a question about your age, so that makes sense.
Yeah. It took me 27 years to realize that I had an interest in STEM. To admit that I was actually in computer science, that I understood it enough to be able to say that I was a computer science person, that I am a computer scientist. That's a long time. But it's because nobody really told me that what I was doing was computer science. Nobody was like, yeah, Shelby, you're a computer science person. Because when I was on robotics, I was doing award presentations. I was doing judging safety guidelines. I was doing all sorts of things that weren't programming the robot. And so nobody told me that I knew computer science. And I didn't have classes. I didn't take a computer science class in high school. I didn't take a computer science class in college. I took astronomy. But, you know, I majored in history, so I wasn't taking anything computer science related. But in those history classes, I learned how metadata worked. In those history classes, I was learning how to digitize collections. In those history classes, I was learning computer science. But none of my professors knew what that was. None of my professors would have identified themselves as needing to know technology or computer science, but they were. So it's really important when we talk about your careers and what you might do and what you might be pursuing in saying that there's non-traditional ways to be a computer scientist. There's non-traditional ways to pursue computer science. I never studied computer science, yet I'm here trying to get all of you to study computer science in some way, shape, or form. I want you to pursue it younger. I want you to be doing it in high school. Because even if you don't go into computer science in college, there's a million ways you're going to use it in college. In the Business Assist program, I was responsible for being in charge of social media for companies that were just starting, that now, today, after several years, are actually very successful companies. I was actually working for the former coffee roaster for Starbucks as a summer internship program in college, running their social media. So no, it wasn't Starbucks, but this was a barista person who had way more, she knew the CEO of Starbucks. It was crazy. And she had so much to say and so much to learn from, but she didn't know how to run social media. She didn't really know how to run anything related to technology. So, yeah.
Could you explain to my students how running social media is more than just what they do on social media?
Of
The difference between checking and running the social media?
Yes.
You're all social media.
I can absolutely do that. So when you go on social media and you're a student and you're looking at all the people's stuff and you're like posting your posts and trying to get as many likes as possible, there's a huge difference between being an influencer and being a social media manager. Influencers actually have social media managers too. Most of them don't run their own social media actually anymore. An influencer is trying to get the most engagement possible by posting content that they've curated for their audience. Yes, there's some strategy and some thinking involved in it, but it's usually just a how many likes can I get by posting this video about me either eating food or putting on makeup or playing these games or doing these things, right? They're already interested in the topics that they're presenting to you as an audience, and so they're just kind of creating that content to see how many likes they can get. Whereas a social media manager is really responsible for creating the strategies to get people who aren't interested in something to be interested in something, and are really targeting audiences that might not exist already. So it's not about finding the niche group to support your business or support your thing. It's actually about getting your thing just out into a general audience. And it's not about necessarily engagement per se, but it is about, analytics. So yes, you can check how many views you get on a post when you run a social media account. And unfortunately, a lot of the people that I worked for thought that was the only way to engage an audience was to see how many likes you can get. But you're also running marketing campaigns. You're paying money to run those campaigns. And sometimes your social media account, you're actually trying to engage people more than they engage you. So as a business, what I would do really hard is to find the people who are posting in areas that are related to me. And I was doing market research, and I was analyzing what our stuff was doing compared to others and trying to find the key partners to work with to maybe boost something a little bit more. So I still do it with Educate Maine and Project Login a lot. So there's other organizations that are in the same sphere as me who I might benefit more. An influencer would call that a collaboration. But in the social media management role, it's just trying to figure out ways to actually how many of you have seen this is probably even outdated now, which makes me really sad. Wendy's social media, right? Does anyone ever see Wendy's or Burger King or some of these fast food chains on social media? Chick-fil-A. How many videos are they commenting on every single day?
Yeah, I see them. Try to meme.
What?
They meme.
Yeah, they meme. They totally do. They troll. They're like, haha, this is funny, let me put my brand right here. That's a social media manager really capitalizing on how to market something. Because they don't have to make that content, they just have to like that video and comment on it.
There was this trend where people were trying to get Slim Jims to comment and stuff, and they would do it because it obviously will not.
Right. So a smart social media manager uses those influencers who are just making videos and says, why don't you make a video about my thing? I don't have to do the work. I'll comment on it. That's a smart social media manager right there, because they're like, hey, look, there's a huge audience over here looking at this thing. We don't really have anything to do with it, but if we comment on that video, something funny. Here's a really good example. Duolingo. That owl.
Yeah, he's all over the place. Also Quizlet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so talk about the new Hunger Games movie.
So all of you guys know this information because somebody really smart is sitting on their phone, and it's not about them creating the media, it's about them trying to find ways to get into your little brains. Not that you have little brains, but you know what I mean. They're just trying to worm their way in. They're like jingles, but they're not jingles anymore, right? I would say that I still was a generation that understood jingles. Fun town, splash town, USA, right? Yeah, fun town, it's still there. But they would benefit from a social media manager going in and assessing all of these key places where they could be commenting and engaging. So it's not about how much engagement I'm getting on my social media, it's about how much engagement I can make to get more people to know who I am. I bet you that Chick-fil-A does not get as many likes on their posts as they do engagement on comments on other people's posts.
Did you?
Yeah?
Sorry to keep overriding the questions, but
Yeah.
so all these jobs that you got doing social media, you said you had a degree in history?
Yeah.
did you land a job being on, because I can envision a lot of my students would love to be on their phone all day.
Yeah.
How did you land a job like that without qualifications doing that? Like, did you just walk in and be like, I like this Twitter?
I will say I did minor in it.
Ah,
I did minor in media communications.
okay.
But I will say this as somebody who's worked with a lot of businesses and who has a general understanding of media communications related stuff right now. You do not have to study media communications to get an internship. So I interned at the National Museum of American Jewish History in college as a communications intern. And that was a museum job. So I was a museum studies person, I was a history person. It was a really good way to get into that type of role. So I did a communications internship from my history. So there's a lot of places that use social media that are not places that understand what social media is, like historical societies. So I also had a really good in when I studied history and I understood history. I could actually share stuff on social media better than most people could because I understood those organizations. So that's also something that I think is really interesting, and it's really important to know, is that communications-wise, you might actually want to be an expert at whatever subject you might be working for, even if you have an interest and passion for media communications. I strongly suggest you think about what type of media communications organizations you might want to work for. Jackson Laboratories is a science organization that focuses on genomes and understanding genetics, right? Their social media team has no clue what any of that is. And the people who are working in those jobs don't know how to do social media. So finding the middle ground in a lot of those places is also a really good way for you to start. So don't think that you have to have a communications background in college to be able to pursue an internship in communications and start going down that path. Mm-hmm.
How did you get employed with like multiple museums? Like how did you get that contact?
That's a really good question. When I graduated, I lived in Livermore, Maine. How many of you know Livermore? Woo, woo! So it's in the middle of nowhere. We're kind of near Augusta, we're kind of near Lewiston, Auburn, but like that's 40 minutes away. So I started applying for anything across the state, and I started just looking for museum jobs. And that's what I did. I just looked up museums hiring in Maine. One of the databases I found that I was using was the National Association of Museums. So then there's also the New England Museum Association as well, also had a job board. So I was looking at jobs across New England as well as Maine. And I stumbled upon a few. I'm not going to lie to you, I applied to 150 jobs before I got hired.
Oh my.
Yes. And I have that number saved because it was a dramatic number for me to reach. I applied to 10 jobs a day. It was a lot.
How old were you at that point?
That was right after college, so I was 21.
What
Yeah.
year?
That was 2018.
Okay.
So I applied for a lot of jobs, and I wasn't getting anything. Maine is kind of a hard state sometimes because you have to travel very far to work in places, and to get interviews, it takes a little bit. To get to those interviews takes a lot, and to really assess whether or not something you want to do is worth all of that is very hard. So I picked museums because I was passionate about museums. I was passionate about public education, actually. I was really passionate about being able to provide experiences for students, but also being able to provide opportunities for adults to further themselves and further their education. So I was looking at working for an organization that could promote just education on a general sense, and museums was a place that I felt very comfortable with. My mother was a teacher, a computer science teacher, but I never wanted to go into education. I wanted to go into education realm. So I wasn't going to be a teacher, but I could provide programming for people. That was something I was passionate about. Yeah?
So what should a student do what if somebody starts at a different career, probably completely uninvolved with computer science, decides that maybe computer science might be the way? What should they do?
That's a really great question. I'm going to come at it just a little bit and say that every profession, every college degree has computer science in it. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. If you're going to go into medicine and you want to study biology or pre-med or whatever it might be, you're going to need to know computer science. I work with a bunch of businesses across the state. One of them is actually Maine Health. Maine Health has an IT help desk position. It is a position that needs somebody to program all of the computers in the hospital. How many of you have been to a hospital recently? Anyone? Yeah. How many computers were in the room with you when you were in the hospital? None? Oh, I'm going to challenge that right now. Okay. There's at least one that I can think of. How many monitors did you have on you? Any? Yeah, a lot. I heard a lot. So all of those things have to be programmed at some capacity. And somebody needs to make sure they're working, right? Wouldn't it be awful if all of a sudden everything stopped working in your room? It'd be pretty traumatic. But somebody's responsible for that. Somebody has to make sure all of those things are working. And so we actually are working with Maine Health to offer an apprenticeship program. How many of you have heard of apprenticeship? Some of you? So can somebody tell me what it is?
It's like you're kind of studying under someone that is more knowledgeable in whatever field it is.
Yes. Anyone else want to add to that? Yeah?
Occasionally, it's and you kind of like, you practice doing the job with supervision of somebody else
Yeah?
who's a pro before you get anything.
Yes. So I'm going to tell you this right now. In Maine, if you're going to have a registered apprenticeship, it has to be paid. So a registered apprenticeship is a little different. You can still say that you have an apprenticeship, but they're lying. We actually are an organization that works on registering apprenticeships. We're a sponsor organization, which means that we work with the businesses to be able to provide those opportunities. An apprenticeship is really for you to have on-the-job learning with additional course learning, so that you're fully qualified to start that position after your apprenticeship is over. So you're going to start at an entry-level position. You might not have any background in it whatsoever. You might be, never gone to college, didn't do anything in high school. I want to now work at the Maine Health IT department. And they're going to say, great, that's awesome, come on in. You're going to have this person as your mentor. You're going to work on these projects. And then also you need to take these additional classes. Here's a math class I need you to take. Here's a computer science class I need you to take. You can take that at the university or you can take it at the Adult Ed Center, whichever one works for you the best. And then as long as you meet these requirements and you've met this job performance, at the end of your apprenticeship, you are now an entry-level worker. But you're working full-time. So you might be making a little less than minimum wage when you're an apprentice. And that's only because you're not qualified to be in that position yet. So you have to earn the qualification to be the real entry-level position, but they're saying, we want you to work for us so bad that we will get you that qualification, you will be a full-time employee, we will pay you, and then once you're done, you will be that position. And sometimes they actually use it to skill up people. So sometimes you might have already been in the field for 10, 12 years, but you now want to become a senior programmer. Okay, we'll upskill you. You'll be an apprentice for the senior department, and then once you're done, you'll now be fully qualified to be in that role. So you could go from a salary of like $70,000 to a salary of $100,000 by doing an apprenticeship. So that's something, if you're not necessarily pursuing a specific, I don't want to go into computer science for 4 years, but I want to do this thing, we have opportunities available for those things. Also, certificates are really something that we encourage students to get. I'm actually getting a certificate in project management right now. I did not go to school for it at all. Certificates are 5 classes. And a lot of times certificates can be paid for by organizations. So my company is helping to pay for my certificate program. It's fully funded through scholarships and my current job. And I think that's something when you're looking at careers and you're trying to decide what you might do, You might not see it right away in the first jobs that you do, but ask questions to your employers about what they might offer for financial aid assistance in pursuing certificates. Yeah?
Does Educate Maine help students get into the internship program with Maine Health?
Yeah?
For my students right here, the juniors and seniors, do you help them get into any other programs? Like, does Educate Maine facilitate any of that?
So Educate Maine has a couple different programs in it. One of them is the Maine Career Catalyst. It is a program that kind of works with graduate students, so like kids who've graduated high school and are either in college or in between. They might not necessarily be right in college, but they've graduated high school. They're the ones who really work on apprenticeships, internships, and externships, and job shadows, and all that stuff. Project Login does focus on the computer science aspects of that, so I do a lot in the computer science realm about setting stuff up, but I'm not always going to be the one that gives you all of the helpful tips and tricks. Though if it's computer science related, I definitely recommend reaching out to me and just saying like, hey, this is something. But also, Educate Maine has another team that's dedicated to career development that does a lot in terms of like online lectures about how to apply for jobs, how to get internships once you've gotten an internship, what are the best practices of being an intern, you know, how do I do a good job and get hired right after my internship or apprenticeship, and a lot of that's available on our website. We also have a podcast on career development of computer science. So we talk with a bunch of different businesses and like people that work in computer science. It's not always just businesses. It's also sometimes just individuals who might have an experience or something that they might want to share about computer science. Sometimes it's college campuses talking about what offerings they have, like Husson, who wants to share stuff about their, you know, XR classes, their virtual reality courses. And then there's also, you know, Thomas College, who wants to talk about their competitions that they have every year, or, you know, UMaine Orono, who wants to talk about their wind challenges and things of that nature. So our podcast features like all sorts of resources for you to either listen to somebody talking about, you know, why they work at Tyler Technologies and what brought them there, and also what their background was. And you'll be surprised how many people in Maine work in computer science jobs now who do not have a background in computer science at all. And it's really fascinating to listen to them talk about all of the different ways that they got to where they are, all of the different passions. If you're interested in communications, we talked with some people last year about multimedia companies, and also just like what it takes to run a printing agency, and the computer science that's involved in printing things. So there's a bunch of different things for you to kind of listen to. And also in those opportunities, there's a lot of names. And I'm just going to say this might be actually advice I should have given in the last session, but you're getting it now, so share it with your peers too. If you hear a name and they're talking about their career on a podcast or at one of these things, like my name, Shelby Bryant, remember my name. Find me, Google me, look me up on Project Login, save my email. If in 5 years you go, man, I really want to talk to that person that talked to my school, because trust me, it happens, save my name, because you can reach out to me in 5 years. I don't care if you've never talked to me again, if you never talked to me here, but you need me as a resource for something later, save my name. It is okay to reach out to people who you do not know about advice and helpful tips, no matter who you are, and no matter where they work, and no matter what they do. You might not know who they are, but it does not hurt to email them and say, hello, my name is XYZ, I'm currently studying this, or I'm interested in studying this, or your job just looks really cool. Can you talk to me about it? I do that every single day. That's how I get the people on the podcasts, folks. So don't feel bad or weird about not knowing someone and reaching out to them. The worst that's going to happen is, I'm sorry, I'm too busy. I'll talk to you next week. I've done a lot of talking. So if anyone has any other questions, I will say questions that came up in the last session. My favorite color is purple. I love cats. I have a cat named Hank. He's a very beautiful, lovely cat. I did play golf. I was on my robotics team. What else? There was a lot of good questions.
What's your salary if you're paid on?
Thank you. Actually, that was a question that was asked last time. My salary, can you guess what my salary is? I did this for the last group too. Can you?
You just say something earlier about 7,000 got some food up to 100,000 something. Say 70,000.
So I make about 60,000.
Okay.
All right. I'm an education nonprofit worker. So I don't necessarily work for all of these companies that I kind of work for in a way. A lot of companies will give us grants and fundraising money so that we can supplement our salaries and so that we can supplement all of our work. But I personally do not make all of the money that they give us. I wish I did. But I worked previously in museums. So I went from a company that paid me about $28,000 a year to a company that paid me about $60,000. So talk about crazy jump right there. So when people ask me if I would leave my job to find a better paying job, I go, well, this is a pretty good paying job right now for me. But I definitely have a lot of interest in what's next and what my next job might be. I love working for Educate Maine. I think I'm going to stay here for quite a while. But I always like to think about, well, what's next? What do I like? And I might start my own business one day, because that just seems like something that would be fun to me. Was there a question out back?
I said, how was your day?
How was my day? My day's been great. I really enjoyed talking with all of you guys down here. And I also will say that my day is not over when I'm done talking with all of you. I'm going to go to my office in Portland, which I don't go to very often because I work remotely. I didn't say that in the last session. I work from home. That's so cool. Do you know how cool that is? I get to travel around the state for different things, but I get to work from home when I'm just working behind my computer. So we have an event actually happening in Portland on Friday that I'm working on. So I'm going to go from here to my office in Portland. I'm going to work on a symposium, which is happening on Friday. I'm also going to have my yearly review. So like I get to talk to all of you, and then I get to talk to my boss about how good my job is. But to be very transparent with you, there's a lot that happens in my day-to-day, and some of it is talking to students, some of it's talking to teachers, some of it's emailing people that I don't know at all and saying, hey, would you like to help me in this project? So my day is kind of crazy, but that's my day.
Thank you.
Thank you.